Today I am going to review the Empire's Expansion of Dominion board game. Way these reviews work, so we can go over some of the things it introduces or brings back an emphasis, some of the components that can make or break an expansion, and what are the most and least things both strength and fun wise in the expansion, along with a little fluff at the end. For each of these, we can give a American letter grade, and then we can make a weighted average at the end to compare to other expansions. So, to get started, context for Empires. It was the 10th expansion. It was released in June of 2016. This was the second of the modern Dominion expansions. It was often seen as a sequel to Prosperity, whereas Adventures was maybe a sequel to Seaside, but in any case, Empires has 24 kingdom cards. I'm a little bit lighter on those. It comes with 13 events coming back from Adventures, 21 landmarks, a new landscape, and then there's some metal tokens in it. Both these debt tokens and these VP tokens are, I guess, metal in the Americas and maybe cardboard elsewhere. In any case, there's some new things. There's debt. Debt is new. There's split piles. Those are new, and there's landmarks. So those are new. There's also a returning emphasis theme of VP tokens, originally seen in Prosperity. Empires has some new things to do with those, and so let's start to look at some of these mechanics. Go ahead and start with debt. What is debt? Debt is these tokens. Well, it's these metal tokens, and it can be in a cost, or it can be in this form. You can see on Capital there's this +6 debt thing, and how this works is when you buy a thing that costs debt, you instead take that many debt tokens, and during your buy phases, or I think actually any time now, you are able to pay this off through use of coins. And so, eventually, like take City Quarter for example, eventually City Quarter will cost you 8 coins, but you don't need to pay all of it right now. You can stick this on your last buy if you have multiple buys in turn, maybe pay 0 for it right now. The idea is that, when you pay this debt, these things are pretty expensive, and the hope is that you're going to get enough value out of this thing to pay this off sooner rather than later. City Quarter, maybe it'll help you draw some more coins, and it'll effectively feel like it costs less just because you're able to do more on your future turns once you have these cards. It's a good theory. Debt is pretty cool from a conceptual perspective, but this thing that I said about doing this thing where you're going to buy this with a little bit now, you're going to have to pay it off later once it helped you do that. It works for City Quarter. It maybe works for Capital. It works for this event Donate. But it's a little bit shaky on the others. Engineer and Overlord are both things that, maybe you'd rather be getting really early on when you're not going to do that immediate payment. It just happens to be better than anything you can do otherwise. Royal Blacksmith, Annex, and Wedding, really hard to pay off. I don't know. It's an okay theory, but I think the execution tends to be a little bit off on that. It's just that, you have to have something that looks a lot like City Quarter, where it's something that you can stick in at the end for that theory to really work. And so, good mechanic, probably doesn't actually really work in practice. Execution is a little bit off here. You're going to probably knock that down to a B+. Alright, next we'll take a look at VP tokens, which first appeared in Prosperity, and I'm going to say not that great a fashion. In Prosperity, it's very much just like these, plus VP, not particularly compelling. Adventures has its 6 cards with them, and then these events. The events dealing with VP tokens are going to be more scoring. You can look at this Dominate. Oh boy, 14. This is like a next step up after Colony from Prosperity. Gain a province +9 VP. As you go along, Triumph is a big scorer there. There's some of these things that are kind of, we're going to say, like the Prosperity ones, where it's going to be like, +1 VP, +2 VP, +1 VP for doing something. The other thing is that there's this other type now called Gathering, where what these are going to do is they're going to be kind of contested VP. And what happens is that when you do something, there's going to be a VP that goes onto this pile. It's going to build up, and then at some point, somebody will do something, whether it's, play this a fourth time or play this a fifth time, gain one of these, gain an estate instead of drawing cards with Wild Hunt, where they're going to collect that VP. And this is good player interaction. These are probably a little bit hurting, but, they do what they do. The gathering ones are really cool, and honestly, the events are pretty cool when they work. Ritual doesn't really work, so, I don't know that VP tokens are the most interesting thing ever. You already have scoring in every game. Like, are these really adding the whole bit? But, the ones in Empires are really, really nice to work with, and so, I'm gonna give this one an A-. Split piles. What these are is you have, for these 5 that are showing 2 cards, you have 5 of the thing that's to here on top, 5 to the thing that's over to the right here. And so, these stack on top of each other. And the idea is, you have to buy all of the top thing or gain all the top thing, or in the case of Gladiator, trash all the top thing, in order to get to the bottom thing, which is usually, a little bit more appealing, somehow maybe works with this card on top. There's another split pile called Castles. In this case, this is like, in 2-player games, it's 8 unique things. Sometimes there's more if you have more players, and these you can go through. They're a victory pile. The problem with split piles is that, there's this nice theory of like, you're going to buy out the top thing and get to the bottom thing, but particularly in the 2-player game, which, I'm playing most of the time, this doesn't work so hot. Encampment, probably you get to do that. Patrician and Settlers, it's variable. They're not exactly the strongest cards, so it can be kind of variable whether you actually get to see this bottom thing. Catapult you never do. Gladiator is maybe just as good to get through for you as your opponent. Like, you have to be playing Gladiator and they get the fortune anyways. So, it's an interesting concept, but I don't think it actually works particularly well, potentially ever, just because you do have to have this, strength split, and these ones are probably not the greatest, examples, so I'm gonna go ahead and give this a B-. It's not the greatest thing ever. Alright, landmarks. These are landscapes that will score you somehow. There's some of them that, are dependent, you can have positive points or even negative points, for what you have in your deck. There's a number of them that are like these kind of contested things where there's going to be, some number of VP on them, and you get the VP, 2 of the VPs for doing something. There's these 2, which are kind of like the gathering cards, again, pretty cool. And then there's some that are more exotic, like keeps area control thing, Mountain Pass, you're going to bid for some VP after the first province. These aren't particularly interesting. I'm gonna be real. There's these 2 which are interesting. There's some of the more compelling ones, but, I kind of have these in proportion. There's 21 landmarks. Most of them are either, stuff in your deck scores, which, fine, like Fountain, cool, but, I already score for stuff in my deck. I buy victory cards. And then these ones that are 2 VP, which often are kind of meaningless just because there's stuff that you otherwise want to be doing, and so, you're taking 2 VP from them anyways. You don't really get to score or not score based on them. And so, although, these aren't kingdom cards, as you get into more modern Dominion, like these do take up landscape spots. And so it can be kind of disappointing to see them. So in that case, I'm going to give them a C+. Alright, looking at some of the components of Empires, attacks. There's only 3 of them here, but we should note that if we think back to Gathering, there is some other player interaction, like explicit player interaction in the set, so we shouldn't ding it too bad for having a limited number of attacks. The attacks it does have are really cool. Enchantress is a pretty cool attack. It's going to directly affect one of their action card plays. Catapult. It's a good trasher early, and you have to consider, do I actually want to be attacking? Would I rather trash an estate? Maybe I want to trash a silver and give them a curse on addition. There's some decisions to be made here. which really reward, careful, tracking of what's going on. And then there's Legionary, which is this really oppressive discard attack. Each other player has to discard down to 2 cards in hand, even if they do get one of them back. But you have to pair a gold with it. So, it's a little bit tough to get going. And so often you can develop a good enough deck to, counteract this, but you better build a good enough deck to counteract this. So, these all give really nice things that are going on. And so I'm going to go ahead and give the attacks and, Empires an A here. Alright, draw pieces. Quantity over quality. There's 10 of them. There's actually kind of less than that, fewer than that, I guess. Bustling Village, Encampment, and Patrician are all in split piles. Patrician's a little bit on the weak side. Royal Blacksmith's on the weak side. But you can probably get it done. Bustling Village and Patrician in particular are not, there's not enough of them to really be doing what you want to be doing a lot of the time. That said, there are some really, really strong ones in here. Villa is a very, very strong village. We'll talk about it a bit more later. City Quarter will draw a lot for you. It's a village. So, we can say it's 10 of them. 10 out of 24 isn't too bad. Quantity-wise, the quality is pretty good. Give them an A-. Payload. What's the cool things that you can do with your deck? Empires is very lacking in this. Most of it is just, get more coins. Plunder also gets you a VP. This is the thing that was under Encampment. Both of the landscapes that are kind of improving that are, gain treasures. So, the payload is definitely lacking, for cool things that you can do with your deck. It's usually produce more coins. Arguably some of the, VP things, if we go back, can kind of substitute for traditional payload, like Wild Hunt. If you play a bunch of Wild Hunts, you can get a lot of points from that. Play a lot of Groundskeepers, maybe you don't need that many coins in order to produce a lot of VP. Similarly, Triumph, you just need to gain a lot of stuff. Who cares if you have coins to go with it? But from the perspective of am I going to do something that is really exciting with my deck? The answer tends to be no. And so we're giving Empires a C- on this one. Alright, let's look at some of our extremes. High-end strength. Villa. We said we'd talk about this a little bit later. I'm even going to push it off a little bit longer. It might be coming up on our most fun thing. But in general, these are things that are very strong cards. They both happen to be villages, but they happen to be, pretty exciting villages. Donate is also an event that is going to be bought virtually every time. But the important thing is although you're going to buy these, they're very exciting. They don't make games all the same with them. You get to do different things, in games with Villa. Maybe it'll be terminal draw, play Villa. Maybe it'll be you want villas for your game and play. City Quarter, you still have to figure out a way to build up actions. You still have to do something with the rest of your deck. Donate, you have to figure it out at the start, but maybe it's going to be something that goes more money. Maybe it's going to be something that goes where, you're going to be playing a lot of actions afterwards. It's really variable, and so, these are really strong cards, and in addition, they make for nice, diverse games. So I'm giving Empires an A for its high-end strength. Low-end strength. Card-wise, it's the straw card. It's not that bad, but, it's bad. It's not something that you get to buy very often, just because it's so expensive, and, it is ultimately just +5 cards. You have to discard your coppers, so, you have to build up a lot of deck in order for this to work. And at that point, if you built up enough deck for this to work, do you really need more draw? Who knows? Then there's these landscapes that, are taking up slots, as we said, with the landmarks, and Ritual and Annex are just kind of, useless landscapes. So, we'd probably give this about a C for the card, and we'd probably give an F for these landscapes, and so, put that together, we're giving it a D. Alright, most exciting card. Now we get to talk about Villa. Villa is the very first thing, that said, if it's your buy phase, return to your action phase, and so, that is a really, really exciting thing to be doing. You get to buy lots of stuff, and then you get to go back to your action phase, and if you have a little bit of draw remaining, you get to use all that stuff you just bought. Or, maybe you didn't have a village to begin with, and you did have some draw card that you like to play. You played it, and now you have 4 coins, and well, I can buy Villa and continue my turn. Either way, it's a really fun thing to be doing, and so Villa, Empires, most exciting? Yeah, it's exciting. Let's give it an A. Most unpleasant, I'm using one of these 2 VP landmarks here. Specifically, I'm using Battlefield. This is one that can kind of encourage you to green a little bit early. That is, buy victory cards, because, it says when you gain a victory card, take 2 VP from here. And so, you're going to be buying these victory cards earlier, which kind of is unpleasant, because a lot of the time what you'd rather do is buy lots of action cards, build up, make a huge deck that does lots of stuff, and you don't want to be worrying about victory cards. This makes you worry about them. That said, you can't complain too much. You're still often going to be waiting to buy victory cards, and I mean, that's what it does. That's what it's supposed to do, right? This isn't something where it was supposed to do anything else, and it just doesn't do that, or does it in a terrible way. It's just something that you have to deal with, and so, although it's unpleasant and it may be nasty to deal with, it's still an A, because, that's what it's supposed to do. Alright, theme of Empires, it's supposed to be kind of Roman-ish. I don't know. I don't think much of it. I'm giving the theme C+. I don't think a lot of these things really fit in the whole Roman thing. The artwork's mostly fine. Empires has probably the 2 or 3 worst examples of having things that don't really fit the time period they're supposed to be. Dominion art doesn't ask much, but if you're kind of failing that basic, it's not so great. So that's a B-. I mean, you can see the expansion background behind here. That's fantastic, right? The vibe is okay. We criticize the amazing stuff you can do with your deck, but it kind of feels like a pleasant expansion. It's not the worst. It's not the greatest. I'll give it a B+ there. Put it all together. It's a 3.01 average. That's a pretty good expansion. It puts it kind of in the middle tier of these later expansions. So, if you're asking, is Empires worth buying? The answer is yeah. Empires is definitely worth buying. You get stuff that you don't get in other expansions, so go ahead and take it.